Welcome to OneTake Weekly. This is the final stream of January. It's been a great year so far. If you are new to the channel and you haven't watched these streams before, I'm the face of OneTake. Despite what some people are saying, we are not a faceless automation channel. Private investor reached out, potentially interested in purchasing the channel, and he was like, I love faceless automation channels like yours. Not faceless. In fact, we got two faces. That one is my brother, Daniel. Say hello.
Hello.
All right, Daniel, should we just jump right into it? Or do you want to talk about, well, let's address this. Oh, you're starting late again. No, we're not. We never start late. We start on time every time. But what people don't realize is that there's a whole process that you don't see. There's about 20 minutes of Daniel, I don't know what you're doing over there, poking and prodding at wires. Your screen turns green. You look really angry. I never hear Daniel curse except when we're trying to do this.
Yeah, well, you can see in front of the camera, everything looks normal. But behind the camera, there's just frayed wires everywhere. There's electrical fire. All right, Gil, you're going to be mad at me for what I did right before we went live also. So we struggled for like 10 minutes. I have all these crazy issues on my computer. And right before we go live, I realized my computer's plugged into my two monitors. But I didn't close my computer, which makes the displays all weird. So I just go for it and I close the monitor. And then for 15 seconds, my screens are all black. And I'm like, oh God, I hope we're not going live. I hope we're not going live. And then it comes back. And then boom, you were there. So it worked out.
I picture you with one foot in the apartment, the other foot outside, holding the antenna that you used to have to use to try and get stations on the TV. And then you get struck by lightning. And then you start picking up YouTube signals in your brain.
Ooh, I can finally get YouTube directly into my brain.
Go ahead, though. You were about to ask me if I remember something.
We tried live streaming once from my apartment. And it turns out the internet, super high-speed internet, just like every 20 minutes, it just randomly goes down to like one.
Yeah, apparently you need more than 0.5 megabits a second upload speed to actually get footage into the internet. There was another time we tried, so we gave up on live streaming from your apartment. So for a while, what we'd do is just record at your apartment and then just upload the video and pretend it's live. We would just stream a pre-recorded video. There's one time we tried to record. About 5 minutes in, you and I somehow got into a fight. And then I think unrelated to the argument, I had calmed down. I was like, okay, let's get started. Let's start over. And I was like, okay, knocked a cup of coffee over, spilled all over my laptop. And we were like, let's just can this. That might have been when we stopped doing the live streams for a while. We had to take a little vacation. Shall I pull up the agenda for today, Daniel?
Let's do it. I love the slides.
Yeah, I don't know. People are watching this. They're like, do you not understand what a YouTube live stream is? I don't think people typically do. It's not PowerPoint. Stop saying that. Okay. I don't know why people keep saying that. It's Keynote. It's what all the cool kids are doing these days. Ignore the January 24th. See, right off the bat, the executives would be laughing me out of the room. Keynote.
Not Google Slides?
No.
You're using Mac
I'm not putting my stuff in the cloud. Or people can get their prying hands on it.
Just putting it on YouTube.
Yeah, but they don't get the raw data. Like there's all kinds of crazy stuff outside the slides, you know, on the side, like little notes for myself, little Easter eggs that nobody will ever see. Here's the agenda. We'll do the usual quick one-take update. We're going to make it real quick because, as we've established, 11% of people want to see that. So for those, it'll only take up no more than 11% of the stream time. Then we'll talk about the latest movie and TV news. Daniel?
That we care about. We care about.
We talked about this. We want more aggressive. Imagine, hold on, before you say it again.
Oh, yeah.
This is directing. I'm going to try and give you some stage direction. Close your eyes. Picture a bunch of people that you can't stand and put actual faces on them. Don't tell me who they are. And all of them are thrusting newspapers in your face. I guess you can't see them because your eyes are closed. They're all yelling at you. Talk about this. Talk about the Oscars. Talk about Margot Robbie not getting nominated enough times. Barbie's not getting her due. Talk about it. And then you
we care about. That we care about. That we care
Perfect.
about.
Perfect.
All right?
I love it. Now, what else is on the agenda? It always
Now I'm
goes
all
one-
angry, though.
That's good. Actually, that'll help even it out because we've seen before that when I'm a little sleep deprived, it comes out as aggression specifically toward you, Daniel. I don't know why. DPDs. Diane coined that term. She was the #1 fan of Gilville. Daniel put downs. When I'm tired, they just flow and I can't help it. And I'm going to warn you right now, I'm sleep deprived. Actually, I was hoping you could give me tips on that. I'm running into a problem where every night I lay down in bed. Let's get rid of this PowerPoint. Who said that? Let's get rid of the keynote for a second. Every night when I get in bed, I can't rest my mind. All I can think about is what videos I'm working on. This happened to me the worst when I was working on The Shining, which if you're going to go crazy while writing something, you don't want it to be The Shining. But I would lay in bed and I wasn't even consciously thinking about it. I would just suddenly hear narration in my head of the video I was writing. Words I haven't even written yet. It was like what we talked about before, as if I got zapped by an antenna and I was picking up somebody else's video. But I would just lay down and just hear in my head, the car approaches the hotel that would become their hell for the next 6 months. They had no idea what was in store for them. And it would just start playing. That's happening to me again right now with the video I'm currently working on. So I tried melatonin, which works a couple of times and then it wears off. You can't use it every night, and it gives me insanely vivid dreams. But I actually appreciate that side effect. We waste so much of our life asleep, you might as well get a second weird life in dreamland. So I appreciate that. So what I try to do to quiet my mind is I'll listen to a podcast, specifically one I've heard many times before. My favorite podcast, Tell 'em Steve Dave. I listen to episodes that I heard years ago, so I know them by heart. So it's kind of just background noise, but I'm not so captivated because I know where it's going. I try to focus on that, distract my mind. That helps me fall asleep, and then I just wake up again a couple hours later. So I'm sleep deprived. And the other thing I'll say, though, is when you're self-employed, you have unlimited flexibility. So back in the day when I had a corporate job, if I couldn't fall asleep until 2 o'clock in the morning, I still had to be in the office by 8. So I would force myself to wake up early. In this line of work, I can say, well, I didn't fall asleep until 2, so I'll sleep in until 10. And then I'll just push my entire workday back, which effectively, if I'm going to get 8 hours of sleep every night, I have just pushed the remainder of my life back by 2 hours, right? I've shifted everything. I'm going to go to sleep 2 hours later every day. Everything I was going to do for the rest of my existence. But now I get angry. I get angry at myself. Like, you stayed up until 2 in the morning? Well, guess what, a-hole? You're waking up at 6 tomorrow. I'm going to take a half an hour off. You're going to sleep even less. So I'm sort of punishing myself. But I'm hoping it's going to make me so tired. Yes, there will be DPDs. I'm going to put you down. But it's worth it because then I'll be so tired, maybe I'll just fall asleep.
Well, Gil, it's time for a GPD. You're not only sleep deprived. Do you know what a side effect of melatonin is?
What?
Lowers your testosterone.
I knew you were going to say that. I could tell. You had that little grin on your face. You've been waiting for an opportunity.
Oh, I took a lot of notes actually during your diatribe there. Is that the word? Yeah, I kept thinking of things to say, so I was taking notes over here. So that was the first thing I wanted to say, that you have low testosterone now. And I don't mean that as an insult, because it's perfectly okay to have whatever amount of testosterone you want to have.
That's what I was going to say.
But you are low testosterone now. The other thing is, you brought up this idea of shifting your whole life by like 3 hours. That brings up my other favorite topic, which is jet lag. So
okay, yeah.
I went to California recently, and just literally the whole time I love talking about jet lag. Like, I feel like it's 3 p.m. I'm hungry because it's dinner time on the East Coast.
You love talking about it. I'm sure everybody else loves hearing about it.
All the time. It was just the only thing I talked about when I was in California. And then what was great was it was a pretty long trip. So by the time I got adjusted to California time, when I came back here, now here I get to keep talking about jet lag. And then we're going to China soon, and that's going to last us days of jet lag talk. So that's what you have to look forward to.
That's great. Don't worry, though. I have the little button here that if I click it, Daniel disappears. So I've got my finger on that button.
No. Please. I'm just an AI in the computer. If you do that, I fade from existence.
Oh no. Well, first off, we've really screwed up here because typically it goes one take, movie, TV news, and then other stuff. But we gave people a little other stuff taste. And today, you know what we have for other stuff? We're introducing yet another new podcast. Because I had a realization, this live stream, it's essentially like inviting a few people into the studio. And while I have Daniel captive here, I can just make him do podcasts. So we resurrected Gil Reads Comics. That was 3 weeks ago. Last week, we resurrected Gilville. Now I want to resurrect another podcast. What podcast could that be? What other long dead podcasts have I or we done? And there was Saulcast. You can't really bring that back until they announce the El Camino of Better Call Saul. We could bring back Jack Ryan Decoded. Did you even know that was a podcast we had?
I recall.
Adam and I, after we came off the Saulcast buzz, we were like, we need to get the next Saulcast. What is the next show we can pod about on a weekly basis? And Amazon had announced the Jack Ryan show. We recorded 2 episodes of it. They never got released. So are we bringing that back? Or are we bringing Blood Moon podcast back? We never really landed on a title for that. That was back when they were developing the Blood Moon prequel spinoff of Game of Thrones. We were going to chronicle the whole behind the scenes. We actually released 2 or 3 episodes, and then they scrapped it after the pilot was shot. They were like, this is not a good show. And then in its place, they announced House of the Dragon. And we got talking Targaryen. There's another podcast we did, Gilville Campfire, the spinoff of Gilville, the spookier spinoff. So am I resurrecting one of those podcasts?
You said introducing a new podcast.
Well, so you're going to see that's accurate because I'm not resurrecting one of our podcasts. I mean, the legality of this is in question, but I'm going to resurrect somebody else's podcast. There was a podcast I got addicted to, and it went for about a year, called Talk About Games. It was Ryan and Mike, who have been associated with Cinemassacre, and once a week they would just each bring a different game to the table, mostly retro games, and talk about them. And it was delightful. It was just a nostalgic treat, a break from all the heavy stuff going on in the world. And I had such a routine because they were very rigorous with the schedule. Every Friday night it came out, and I looked forward to it. And then they ended it unceremoniously. And so I figured, I'm bringing it back. Now, obviously, I can't bring it back. So it's a new podcast. It's called Gamin with Gil. So later today in this stream, you're going to see the debut of Gamin with Gil, which should make 70% of our audience happy based off of recent polling data. And based off of recent comments, it should make 2 or 3 people very unhappy. They said, no, please don't talk about games on this channel. It's enough of that going around. Twitch streams, Let's Plays, all that stuff, reviews, but we're not even doing any of that. I'm just going to tell you about a weird game I found, and I'll show you some clips. I was playing it today. It's going to be fun, nostalgic, going back to the 80s.
Is there another version of this that's Gaming with Gil and Daniel, and it's like painted on at the bottom, the and Daniel?
Well, you have to earn your stripes. I didn't want to bring this up because I intended on taking you to the Coliseum on the next episode of Gilville, where we can do a little taste of it now. But when you do a podcast, you need 2 people talking. You did okay on the stream overall, like when we were talking about the Vision Pro, but that field report, the Puerto Rico field report, I was basically doing stand-up comedy for half an hour.
What was I supposed to say?
I know why. I know exactly why, because I went back and I had to review the footage when I was clipping it out.
Yeah.
You were staring down at the comments the entire time. Because
No,
Alun and Adam, they were. I saw you. Alun can vouch for me. Alun, are you in the chat? Where were his
staring
eyes
at the
looking?
comments? I usually don't really look at the comments, to be honest. You know, I was probably just texting. Maybe I was just texting the whole time.
Yeah, that would
I keep my text messages open right there in the bottom. You know, when I get bored of what you're saying.
It was messing with the network. There was a buzzing sound the whole time.
Well, look, I've
So,
never been to Puerto Rico. I was just sad that I didn't know what it was like, and it was very triggering for you to just talk about this place the whole time that I've never been to. And I wasn't sure if it was in America or not, and like it was very stressful.
in the chat, FYI, everybody, we have a tryouts coming up for the next episode to see who will be my partner on this podcast. I need a new potting partner, unless you can turn it around today. So if you want to get on that thumbnail, Daniel, the podcast cover, you got to earn your stripes today. And it's going to be tough because you're not a gamer. I know that. You've never played this game. You've never even heard of it. So you're going to have to dig deep. And I'm not looking for, if I played this in California, it would be 3 hours ago. It's got to be better than that.
If I played it in China, it'd be 12 hours ahead of now. Okay, there's a point where you cross over. It's called I forget what it's called, but there's a line somewhere on the earth
if you take
where the day changes.
You fold it and you poke a hole through it. It's a wormhole.
See, that's a classic thing they do, like in all sci-fi movies.
Yeah, and they actually let's just move on from that. So,
wait, can we just talk about it? Can we do a segment on aliens? Because then I can actually talk about stuff.
We're gonna do a whole episode on aliens coming up. We're gonna do a special weird one take once a month where we talk about aliens or other supernatural paranormal activity. Last thing I'll say is if you want to end up on the thumbnails, I've been making all the thumbnails myself lately. I don't know how to use Photoshop. So if you zoom in on today's thumbnail and you see that my arm just sort of merges into Supergirl's and Matt Damon and I are conjoined twins, it's because I don't know what I'm doing. As long as it looks good from a distance, it's good enough. But Daniel, if you want to be on the next thumbnail, this is the test you have to pass. Every week, I take our live stream, I feed it into an AI, and it picks out the little shorts that have the most viral potential. Not once yet have you been in one of the top 5 shorts selected. If you can say something that gets the AI to recognize you as viral, you got a virus that it wants to spread, then you can be on the next thumbnail.
Wait, so 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, do you remember I went on a long spiel about my Remarkable? Did that get picked by the AI as
somehow
shorts-worthy?
It's just missed it. Though I think you can't do it talking about technology because it gets jealous. It feels threatened by that. Unless you have my talent, because it did pick out a little thing I said about virtual reality. So I was able to puncture through the insecurity and reach the machine's cold, dead heart. I got one more update regarding OneTake. If this is not enough for you, you want more streaming, tomorrow I'll be back on Hack the Movies. And in case you need a reminder of who's the host of Hack the Movies, it's Tony, famous Tony. I meant to put in a picture of the crowd from Dark Knight Rises, but instead we have the Tony Peaks, Twin Peaks. So tomorrow night, 8:30 p.m., I believe, we'll be talking about a bunch of movies. You can get some clues by looking at everybody in that tub right there. And as always, I haven't started watching them. So I'll be up late tonight, and tomorrow will be a marathon session. So I hope there's some good ones this month. And I'm still working on that recap, which, like I said, will please 70% of people. That should be out next week. It's been keeping me up at night. That's how excited I am. So if I find out that any viewers are losing sleep in anticipation of this recap, nothing would make me happier. Everyone just send in pictures to gil@onetake.tv. I want to see pictures of just right here. I want to see dark bags under your eyes, all right? Are you ready for news that we care about, Daniel?
That we care about.
Did you do any digging on your own? Any research behind the scenes to prepare?
Not today.
Because you did. Today. Last week you did, but you had to drop, so you didn't get to actually... Maybe at the end of this, we can let you weigh in and just see what you can bring to the table. All right?
Wait, what do you mean?
Let's move on.
You're gonna do the segment, and then you want to see if I can weigh in at the end.
No, I'm saying at the end, of the stream today, let's give you an opportunity to weigh in on last week's topics. Because I know you did research. You told me you read about the new Jurassic Park, and just see if you can throw a hot take out there, get something to stick.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Did we go too hard on you? I take all that stuff back. Next week, it's only going to be your face in the thumbnail. I'm sorry.
Yes. And that'll please what percent of viewers, Gil?
We'll find out. All right. I know what's going to cheer you up. Are you ready? We finally have a casting announcement for Supergirl. We knew that casting was underway. A lot of names were getting thrown out there. And finally, James Gunn confirmed. It's going to be Millie Alcock from from House of the Dragon. Who did she play, Daniel?
Rhaenyra was her name?
Yeah, Rhaenyra Targaryen. And she's going to appear, obviously, as the main character in Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, likely to be released in 2027. When James Gunn made all these announcements, he said it's going to be out 2 years after Superman Legacy. That comes out in 2025. I'm no mathematician, but that tells me we're going to see this in 2027. There are rumors that she's going to show up first in Superman Legacy, maybe as a cameo, maybe in a post-credits thing. But at the moment, that is only rumors. In a second, we'll go into what this movie's actually going to be about, at least what we think it's going to be about, based on some stuff that James Gunn has said. And Woman of Tomorrow was a recent run in the comic series written by Tom King. So we can go into his comics a little bit, get a little Gil Reads Comics flavor. And if you don't know Supergirl, you don't know her origins, we'll go into that in a second. But first, what do you think of this casting?
I think we liked her a lot in House of the Dragon, right? We were all in, well, the recasting like halfway through the season like bothered us. I think mainly because it involved the time jump, but I think also that we really did get attached to the characters, in particular the character that she portrayed. So I think it's good, and I really liked her. She gave a good performance.
Yeah, I thought she did a great job. And as we'll see when we talk more about Supergirl's origins, she is a pretty dark character. And I think that we've seen in House of the Dragon that she's an actress who can handle the gravitas you would need for that role, the kind of depth you're going to have for this character. I also like the fact that anything that smells like something other than studio interference just smells good. And she's not somebody who was in another action or superhero movie where it's obvious and a studio would say, we want her for the next Supergirl. This is interesting casting. You watch House of the Dragon, a role that no part of that role screams superhero. So to pick her for this, it feels like an interesting choice, which means it feels like a choice by someone other than a studio executive. It feels like a creative choice. So on all fronts, to me, this is good news.
Didn't we have a Supergirl in The Flash?
Yeah, and I liked her too. I found her character wasn't treated very well. Her arc was basically this. It was, I'm not going to fight for humans when humans treated me so badly. You know what? I will fight for humans, actually. So she was a good actress, I thought. Would have liked to have seen her come back, but I'm happy with this casting.
Wait, so then I don't remember. We talked about The Flash like 7 months ago, and it was supposed to be like the whole start of the new DCU. Gunn scrapped that, right? And that's why we're seeing a new Supergirl also?
Yeah, The Flash was supposed to restart the DCU, and it even had post-credit scenes and scenes at the end of the movie that were going to set up the new status quo. But James Gunn went in, and instead they got rid of all that and just put a joke at the end. So they could basically say, Flash is off in some other universe. Don't worry about him. We're going to start fresh. And then Blue Beetle was coming out, and he was playing coy over whether or not it's going to be canon, because if it does well, yeah, let's make it canon. But really, we have not truly seen the start of the new DCU yet. Superman Legacy is going to be it. I think there's also an animated movie, Creature something, that's coming first. But he's kind of said the first true introduction is going to be Superman Legacy. So what is Supergirl going to be about? Here is what James Gunn said word for word. In our series, we see the difference between Superman, who was sent to Earth, and raised by loving parents from the time he was an infant, versus Supergirl, who was raised on a rock, a chip off Krypton, and watched everyone around her die and be killed in terrible ways for the first 14 years of her life, and then came to Earth when she was a young girl. She's much more hardcore. She's not exactly the Supergirl we're used to seeing. You hear that, by the way. Everyone around her dies, killed in horrible ways. House of the Dragon. I mean, she is perfect for this role. She's done it already. But what is he talking about? She lived on a rock? A chip off of Krypton? The hell does that mean? Her origins, like every comic book character, has changed over the years. But her origins in the current continuity, in the Tom King comic arc, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, let's go over that. It'll give you a good flavor. So, like James Gunn said, Supergirl, Kara Zor-El, she was a child when Krypton was being destroyed. So unlike Clark Kent, Kal-El, who never spent a second on Krypton except as an infant, she was actually a child. She was a teenager. So she saw the world falling apart. And in the comic, there's some descriptive details of all the things she saw walking home from school one day as the planet was falling apart. Horrible things, people bleeding out, begging her for help, but she couldn't help. She was just a kid. Thankfully, her father put a dome over their city, Astro City, so they could manipulate the weather, control the weather. Thanks to that dome, they were actually able to survive and literally became a piece of rock floating through space. But they couldn't control it. So this was never a very tenable situation, but at least the town got to live for a time. But suddenly, people started dying, including Supergirl's mother. What the hell's going on? Zor-El looks into it and he figures it out. It's radiation poisoning. Why? The ground beneath them became irradiated by a yellow sun, and there was only one way to stop it. They built a bunch of lead panels over it. Everyone got involved. Supergirl was hammering away, putting lead on the ground. Other people realized, we're all going to be dead before we get this lead on the ground, so they gave up. She kept hammering. They eventually got the lead. They put the shield in place, and then something happened. Asteroids fell and started destroying the floor. So everything went to hell. Radiation was back on, and people just started dropping and dying again. And in the process of building the lead, they already lost 13,000 people. There were 18,000 survivors. After they built the lead flooring, there were 5,000. The asteroids busted it up, everyone got irradiated, and people started dropping like flies. There was no saving this planet. But Zor-El's brother had this wacky idea he told him about before getting blown up with Krypton. He built a little pod for his baby, Superman. Zor-El said, if Jor-El can do it, I can do it. Builds a pod for Kara, his daughter. Sends her to Earth. So at this point, Daniel, she's 14 years old. She's seen an entire world end, Krypton. She's seen 70% of a population eradicated. And then she saw the rest of it basically eradicated, except for her. And then due to time dilation, by the time she gets to Earth, her infant cousin, Superman, has grown into an adult. So that's why she's younger than him, but seen a lot more horrors than him. So she's an interesting character.
That sounds super cool. What was it that destroyed Krypton?
I think it was weather, climate change, something like that. I forget. Again, it probably depends on the continuity. In Woman of Tomorrow's case, I'm not sure. I'd have to go back to the comic.
Should we ask ChatGPT quickly?
Go for it. I think I would be game to read through this arc for Gil Reads Comics, because just from the little I read the origin here, of course, and I kind of skimmed through some of the rest of it. It's pretty compelling stuff. I know you and I enjoyed the new Ultimate Spider-Man, where it had better character development than you would expect, a lot more dialogue. This seemed like it would be up our alley as well.
So it was destroyed due to its unstable core. Natural geological processes that eventually led to the planet's implosion or explosion. In some stories, the core's instability is exacerbated by the exploitation of Krypton's natural resources. Doesn't that happen in that happened in some other sci-fi thing? Did the Hobbits do that?
Doesn't that happen in every sci-fi disaster movie? Not always the core,
Yeah.
but the people exploiting. I can't stand when people exploit stuff. Pisses me off.
Wait, I have a question. So kryptonite is Superman's kryptonite, right?
Mhm.
So it's okay. It was a radioactive element that was on Krypton. Why? Like, do you know why that
And why do you
had that
name your
effect on him?
entire planet off of like that would be
Yeah.
like if we named Earth, we're gonna call Earth uranium.
What is kryptonite?
All right. While Daniel sits in the corner chatting with a robot, probably giving him inaccurate information. Why don't you give us, Daniel, the final word on Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow?
It sounds cool. I'm excited. Do we know that any of this James Gunn stuff is going to be good? We haven't seen any James Gunn DC movies yet, right?
No, the jury
This is
is
the first
still out.
one. Superman Legacy is the first one.
Yeah, that's the first. Like I said, there's going to be some small stuff before that. I keep forgetting the name, Creature Squad or something like that. There's an animated movie coming, but he has said, yeah, Superman Legacy will essentially be our true introduction to the new DCU. The jury's out. I'm going to remain optimistic.
By the way, there's different colors of kryptonite. Each of them have different effects. There's green kryptonite. You got red kryptonite. You got blue kryptonite. This feels made up by ChatGPT, doesn't it? You got white kryptonite. You even have pink kryptonite.
ChatGPT knows it's got another gullible ignoramus on the hook.
So kryptonite is named after the planet.
Okay.
I don't know why though.
All right. I feel like we've squeezed out we've taken the sponge of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow casting and we've squeezed out every drop of news we can get out of it. Are you ready for the next one?
Last thing. Like ChatGPT thinks it can get into the business of analyzing movies too. That's our job. It says the naming serves a narrative purpose, linking Superman's great weakness to his origins. I didn't ask for that, ChatGPT.
Yeah, did you pick up on that?
I just wanted to hear the history.
You pick up on that ironic parallel between the names?
Oh, interesting. There's similar names, Kryptonite and Krypton.
Ben Affleck and Matt Damon are reuniting for another movie. This happened recently with Air, and that was the first time they'd worked together. Well, I think they had The Last Duel, but there was a 25-year gap after Good Will Hunting. So anytime we see them together again, for me, that's welcome news. The movie's called Animals. It's a crime thriller directed by Ben Affleck, starring Matt Damon. His name is misspelled, but that was a test to see if anybody could catch it before I did, and nobody did. It's written by Colin McIntyre and Billy Ray. This is exciting because, like I said, I am a fan of both these actors. So in this case, Ben Affleck will only be behind the scenes. I'm going to give you the quick synopsis, Daniel. We don't know a lot about it, but it is a crime thriller concerning a mayoral candidate and his wife, whose son is kidnapped. Surrounded by plenty of enemies, political and otherwise, the husband and wife have no choice but to get their hands dirty in order to save their son. I love people getting their hands dirty to get the tough job done. I love The Punisher. I love Batman. I love everything I'm hearing about this movie. Unless it's going subversive, where it's like, well, by getting their hands dirty, they became the monsters. No. They kidnapped their kid, their son. They're the monsters. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Don't
Daniel.
you think it's going to be subversive? Have you seen The Last Duel?
No.
It was a very non-traditional movie in that it had different sequences, like replaying the same events told from different perspectives. And it was very depressing. I don't know. I think it was a good movie. It was a good movie. It dealt with very, very heavy subjects. I think it probably did a good job, but it was not enjoyable to watch. And that makes me worried that this is not going to be the type of non-subversive thriller that we want it to be.
I know everybody in the chat is going to say, how many of those do you need? Go watch Beekeeper, which I have to do later tonight for Hack the Movies tomorrow. But first off, nobody behind the scenes writing, directing that did Last Duel is involved in this, but you have to imagine that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon were drawn to that material. So clearly it's something that they like. And I would imagine that there's probably a kernel of that in this. But I'll say The Town, I thought that struck a great balance between, it was a thriller, but it was also subversive, where it felt pretty, there was a lot of dread in that movie, but I still loved it. So Ben Affleck can do this genre in a way that I enjoy. Big Ralph is back. Big Ralph is a viewer from the Saulcast days. I haven't seen you in a long time. He had them down to 7 years, now 86 years. WTF. I don't even want to say what that's from because it would be a spoiler. But I will say this. First off, thank you for the super chat, Ralph. I got news for you. Ralph, you're not just big. You're huge. You're the biggest Ralph. Thank you. Sometimes I feel like I have not said my final word on Better Call Saul. I'm so tempted to do a 1 to 2 hour retrospective on it. I did it for Succession, a show I didn't feel anywhere near as passionate about as I did Better Call Saul. So if I gave that show this treatment, I feel like I owe it to Better Call Saul.
Gil, don't you remember right after the Saulcast days, I was like whipping you, begging you to make this retrospective. It's like more Saulcast videos. I was the devil on your shoulder. These things make money.
I did an ending explained. So, that's something.
The fans want more, Gil.
All right. It might happen. I will say, if we're going by the numbers, some of my Better Call Saul videos will pop up into the top 5 most viewed videos of the day to this day. And those are videos I made before the final season came out. So if people are finding value in those, then I got to think that some look back at the full series. There's a demand for it. I mean, I'm demanding it. Sarah Elizabeth says 3 hours minimum. I do. I think there's a good chance it'll happen. Good chance.
Come on,
if you
Sarah, I've been pushing
know,
for 4.
I mean, you'll hear about it here first in the quick OneTake update. So keep tuning in. All right, now I'm probably gonna cut all this out when I put this clip on the other channel because people are gonna click on probably a thumbnail of me with my arms around Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. They want to hear about them, and then all of a sudden there's all this Big Ralph Saul talk. They're gonna be really confused. So I'm gonna cut, and then Daniel, why don't you give your thoughts on this news?
But you're not gonna cut out my jet lag stuff, are you?
No, that stuff is gold. I'm gonna do I'll put a highlights reel of just you.
And I know you want to cut clips, so I'm going to screw everything up. But who's playing Superman in Superman Legacy?
I think his name has the word corn in it. Superman. He was in the movie Pearl. David Cornswat. He looks familiar. Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen Pearl yet. I loved X, so I'm definitely going to see Pearl. But I'll say this. I look at him. Looks like Superman.
Okay, my reaction to Affleck and Damon reunited. I don't know. I hope it's good. I already said, I'm worried. Because I guess I haven't watched that much of the stuff by them recently. I mean, one of my favorite movies is Good Will Hunting. I loved Good Will Hunting, but I mean, that's a long time ago.
What about Argo?
They don't make them like they used to. I did see Argo. That was the Iranian hostage crisis, right?
Yeah, that was a solid movie, but I feel like people went crazy for that movie. I think it won an Oscar, and then I feel like nobody talks about it anymore. It just really came and went. Daniel Fa, they can't top Dogma. One of the best Kevin Smith movies. I love Kevin Smith. I will follow him to the ends of the earth, but I can't honestly say I've loved any of his recent movies, at least not in the way I did. I love his recent movies as a fan, and I can hear his voice coming through them. But some of his older movies, I love them that way, but I also love them as movies. Now it's become just not the kind of thing I can recommend to anybody unless you're inside the circle where you get all the inside jokes. For Clerks 3, we went to, I think, his second screening of it where he did the Q&A after. So I am a Kevin Smith fanboy, and so I'm able to enjoy all of his movies. Dogma is definitely up there.
Can you still hear me? The screen's frozen on my end, but I hear you.
I still hear you.
Just fine. Sweet. So how weird is it that the movie Dogma exists?
Yeah, I know.
What a weird movie, but I love it.
As a kid, I did not get it. I mean, I liked it, but I was so confused. I was like, how does a movie like this come together? Why is Ben Affleck in this? But it's awesome.
Wait, so can you still see my video too?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, these are almost as good as your jet lag comments. I mean, what we have next on the agenda, unless you're curious to know why are they reuniting after all this time? Are you curious?
Yeah, why are they reuniting after all this time?
It's actually thanks to Peter Jackson, who did a documentary about the Beatles recently. And this is what Damon said. At the end, they're playing on the roof in London, and it says this is the last time that they ever played together live. And it made me so sad because you look at them and they're so happy. Then I called Ben and I said, look, man, we were talking about doing this, and it's like, it's been 25 years or something since Good Will Hunting. What are we doing? You know, we both kind of hit the lottery. Why aren't we working together more often? They were being silly. They were like, well, we got to go out there and create our own careers in the business. We can't just work together all the time. But they want to work together. We want to see them working together. And so I think he finally just had that moment of like, let's just do it. Especially after all this time. At this point, they've proven it. Ben Affleck can direct movies. Actually, he said he's a little nervous to direct Matt Damon because... or he already directed him in Air, but he was nervous because he's like, this guy's been directed by some of the greatest directors of our time, including Ridley Scott. And now I have to go up to him and be like, I need to see more of the motivation in your character, the emotion. Say it like this, all right? Okay,
That's nice.
We're excited about this news. I love a good crime thriller. And let's see where it goes. Next up, Daniel, we have the debut of the new podcast. Honestly, I don't know if you could tell, but I was just trying to get through that other stuff because I really wanted to get to this. Gaming with Gil. This is Gaming with Gil, episode 1. Spider-Man Gets Weird. What am I talking about? We are discussing a game called Questprobe featuring Spider-Man. Even the name is weird. This came out in 1984. As some quick background, Marvel in 1983. They wanted to license out their characters for some adventure games. So they went to somebody who was very well known in the adventure computer game space, Scott Adams, CEO of Adventure International. He made games, text adventure games. You could see an example on the right side here where a lot of times it would just be text. You're in a dark room. What do you want to do? And then you type something like, turn on lights. Where a lot of these games were very limited. It had to be a verb and a noun. Go north. Activate lights. You had to figure out a way to condense your actions into 2 words. And if you had a more advanced computer, you could also get graphics sometimes. So they came up with the idea, a pretty cool idea, of making 12 games. Each one would feature a different character. So you'd have, for example, Questprobe featuring Hulk. And each game would have a comic issue parallel to it. So you'd have a comic series, 12 issues, and then with each issue, concurrently, you would release a game. And the 2 would be tied into each other. So they made Hulk, they made Questprobe featuring Spider-Man, and the third one was Human Torch and The Thing from Fantastic Four. Sadly, that was the last one they did because Adventure International went bankrupt because people realized the computer game is more than just go north, pick up thing. I'm just kidding. Those games were great. Great use of your imagination. The company went bankrupt, though, so they canceled the series, both the games and the comic. But thankfully, in the 90s, they did actually finish the story arc in Quasar, some other comic series. And I'll fill you in on all of that. Don't worry. So how does the comic and the game actually tie together? Let's use Hulk as an example because they're all pretty much the same. You'll find some of this pretty interesting because it's a sort of sci-fi philosophical take. There is a species very far out there in the galaxy, this advanced species, but they're pacifists. They are beyond war and fighting. So what happens when they're attacked by a vicious group called the Black Fleet? They take a vote and they say, we are the Scadamites. We don't fight. So I say we die. Die with dignity. But one man, the Daniel of the group, Durgan, he says, are you crazy? But we're just going to die? We're an advanced civilization. We have knowledge. We have all this stuff. We're just going to let it all get snuffed out because you're all a bunch of babies? So Durgan goes off on his own, and he builds a robot called the Chief Examiner, and he sends him to Earth because he realized, even if I can convince everybody to fight, we don't know how. We don't have any tools. But he heard about these things on Earth called heroes, Avengers, and he sends this robot to Earth to steal their powers. So he gets to Earth and he spots the Hulk, and he's like, Hulk, why don't you jump into this portal? Why don't you go in there? And he just can't get him to do it. The only way he can do it, remember how much I hate people exploiting people? He exploits Hulk's need to help innocent, pretty women when they're in danger. So there's a girl on a boat, and he has to jump over to save her. The only way to get there is to jump through the portal. So he does. He dives through it. Seconds later, he comes out the other side, and his powers are gone. They do come back.
He couldn't go around that?
He doesn't have... the Hulk does not have the strongest mind, Daniel. I don't know if you're aware of that. He can only go in a straight line. So he goes through the portal, comes out the other side, a little bit weaker, but his power does return. So he's really just borrowing his power, kind of copying and pasting it. Here's the thing, though, Daniel. You can see this little asterisk right here. To see what the Hulk really passed through, get the Scott Adams Questprobe adventure computer game. For details, see the ad following this story. So the entirety of the game takes place in the seconds of Hulk passing through that portal. Then here's the ad in the back, by the way. I like looking at old ads. Doesn't it just make you feel nostalgic?
I like it. There's something also just much more straightforward about ads back in the day.
There's no 4D chess happening with like, yes, download TikTok, and then we're going to put some memes out there that slowly manipulate your mind until you realize you don't want to use their butter. You need our butter at the grocery store.
This is just like play our game.
Yeah,
it's a good game. You're going to like
with the Hulk. What happened in the portal? Buy the game and find out. Basically the same thing with Spider-Man. So that was issue 1. Issue 2, I wanted to show this. I guess at the time, Marvel had licensed Indiana Jones, and they did a comic adaptation of Temple of Doom. By the way, there's a lot. And so for people listening, Spider-Man is swinging past a billboard that says, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. See the movie and read the Marvel comic. There are some interesting movie adaptations Marvel did back in the day. There's a Blade Runner comic that just adapts the movie. The most interesting one, though, because it's just the contrast between a true work of art. And I'm not saying comics aren't art. Definitely not saying that. But some of them aren't, and I would say some of them pale in comparison to what Stanley Kubrick was doing. So Marvel did an adaptation of 2001: A Space Odyssey. But the funniest thing is, they actually spun a character out of their movie adaptation that went on to join the Marvel canon. So there is some character running out there in the Marvel universe where you can trace his origins back to like the Monolith from 2001. It's pretty interesting. So again, you see Spider-Man gets tricked into jumping through the portal to find out what really happened, play the game. So I know, Dale, you're wondering, what the hell happened in that portal?
What really happened?
I'm going to show you. So a lot of these old games, especially computer games, you can play them very easily nowadays. You don't even have to go to scummy websites to download ROMs and emulators. I remember back in the day when I discovered emulators, it was like a kid in a candy shop. I was so excited. But you'd have to dial up your modem, and it would be hours to download one single Super Nintendo game. Now, in a span of 5 minutes, you can download the entire Super Nintendo library. But I vividly remember we had a laptop on the floor, dialed into the modem, and I was downloading Donkey Kong Country 3 because I'd never played that one. I loved 1 and 2, never got my hands on 3. In the entire day, I'd be like playing downstairs. Every 15, 20 minutes, I would run upstairs, get on the ground, and check the progress. And I was just waiting all day to play. And then finally it was done, and it's like, Kiddy Kong. That's the game. That's what I've been waiting for. People didn't love Donkey Kong Country 3. I feel like I never gave the game a fair shake, so I do want to go back and play it one day. And this is great. It's Gaming with Gil. We're talking about all kinds of games. So so what I was going to say, though, is nowadays, if you want to play like an old DOS game, and this game was on all the computers, Apple II, But if you wanted graphics, and of course I played with graphics, you had to go on the Spectrum or the Commodore 64, which I learned the hard way. You're going to find out in a second. If you want to play any of these games, you can go to archive.org, and a bunch of them are just available on there to play right in the browser. So yeah, I went to archive.org, found the game. This is the Apple II version. I booted it up, and a lot of these old games, you got to figure out how to play. Be sure that caps lock is on. Why? Flip disk and hit return. I don't have a disk. How do I do that? It just, and then I gave up because I couldn't figure out how to do it. I pushed every button on the keyboard. And actually, this gave me an idea for a mobile app. Nobody steal this. This is a mobile game called Appliances, the game, where each level you have to use a difficult appliance. So imagine you open up the app and you see the front of a VCR and you hear your dad being like, I need you to record the game for me later. And the game starts soon. So you have to program the VCR and hit the right buttons. Or, okay, level 2, you program the VCR, maybe you missed the first minute of the game, so you get a B+, but you pass the level. Level 2, you're looking at the tag of a shirt on one half of the screen, and the other half is a dryer and a washer. You have to pick the right settings based on the tag. So one level could be, get Questprobe to start on the Apple II. All right, but I found a Commodore 64 version, and that version worked. So I'll show you what the game looks like. Oh yeah, first off, here's the startup screen. As it pulls up, basically the idea is when you go into that portal, it takes you into a computer simulation, essentially a test, so the chief examiner can see you in action. The test comes down to this. They create a virtual environment. So in Spider-Man's case, you can see on the screen, they stick you in a recreation of the Daily Bugle offices. It's at the beginning of the game. You can see I'm just walking around sporadically. Go north, go north. Oh, I found Madam Web. And she says that she can scan stuff. That'll come into play later. Go south. Go east. And then I found Hydro Man. So at the beginning, this is how you do text adventure games. You start out by just walking around and getting a lay of the land. And I finally found a use, Dan. I think you held it up earlier. The Remarkable, basically digital paper. I finally found a use for it because the first thing I did was walk around the game and I just map it out. I'm holding it up to the screen. I mapped out, here, I made a PDF of this so you can actually see it. But I mapped out the entire environment. And essentially, like I said, what you're trying to do is walk around and look for gems. And the way you get them, sometimes you just find them, walk into a room, look. You see a gem. So you can see here's the map. Pick up gem. Spider-Man Questprobe was actually advanced for its time. I said earlier that some of these games were limited to simple verb-noun combinations. But Spider-Man allowed for complex sentences. Like instead of talk Madam Web, you could say talk to Madam Web. So they really upped the complexity for this game. So like I said, it started with getting a lay of the land. And then I'll show you how you solve some of these puzzles, okay? So as you walk around, you saw Hydro Man. You'll see some other villains. You'll see Lizard, for example. Let me show you what it takes to kill Lizard. So I spoke to Madam Web, and she told me I can scan stuff. For example, you can scan Lizard. So I did that, and here was her response. What does this mean to you, Daniel? She goes, okay, Caco 3, Hook 1, Cackle 2. What is this nonsense?
CaCO3. Is that calcium carbonate?
Calcium. That's right. That's right. What's the HCl?
Calcium
HC1?
carbonate HC1. Just hydrogen and one carbon? That doesn't make any sense.
Hydrogen chloride.
Oh, it's an L. Okay, hydrogen chloride. Yeah. So that's acid. So calcium carbonate plus acid gives you calcium.
Calcium chloride.
Yeah. Okay. Calcium chloride.
They did
It's weird. They also capitalized the L in Cl, but that like look that the L and.
Are you questioning the accuracy of Questprobe featuring Spider-Man?
Wait. It makes no sense. Also, it has two chlorine atoms in the equation. Where did the other Where did the second chlorine?
This game is
from?
gonna get me killed one day. They're like, we need some hydrogen chloride, some calcium chloride stat. And I'm like, all right, give me the calcium carbonate. Give me the HC the L1, and it's just not gonna work. They did
Wait,
market
and then
these
also what happened to the hydrogen in this formula?
Well,
Anyway.
that's some things
There's no
get wasted.
hydrogen. No.
All right, so you
The
got
hydrogen
to
goes somewhere.
basically she's telling you for some reason, here's some chemicals, mix them together, and that's somehow relevant to Lizard. So I went ahead, and they did actually market these games as somewhat educational. So I went ahead, I opened the elevator doors, I pried them open using Spider-Man's strength. I went into the elevator shaft. First thing you always do in a text adventure game is look shaft. And they said, I see mostly empty tool niches. All right, why don't you look niches? And they found a gem in the niche, so I took it. And then you go up the shaft, there's another niche, grab the gem, go up the shaft, blah, blah, blah. Grab all the gems in the elevator shaft. But then we get to the important moment where I went to an empty office and I found acid, calcium carbonate, and exotic chemicals. So I pick up the hydrochloric acid and the calcium carbonate as Madam Web. And this better be in the Madam Web movie that's coming out. I want a digital recreation. I want to see Spider-Man bumbling around in a mostly empty Daily Bugle office. Oh, here's some acid on the ground. Let me grab and some exotic chemicals. Let me grab these.
And why is the office so empty? Like, it's not because it's just rendering images, right? They're not really interactive. Is it?
That's
really,
right.
Is it?
Yeah, you'll see that when we go to some other rooms, they'll have actual stuff that changes. Like you'll see an object, and when you pick it up, the object disappears. But I guess he's like, I don't know what acid looks like, so I can't draw it. And why is there just that's the other one thing I'll say up front that I don't love about this game. Played it for a few hours today. Is they definitely got a little lazy because if you create a computer simulation and stick Spider-Man into it, you don't need any logical connections between the puzzles. A text adventure game, a good one, will have a compelling story and it organically works the puzzles into it. You have to kind of trick you into completing a puzzle. Like if you play Batman Arkham Asylum, it's not like puzzle number 1. It's just Joker's behind that door you need to get through, find a way through. The puzzle is an organic part of the story. But here, why is there an empty room with exotic chemicals and acid? There's no logic to it. So anyway, I pick up the 2 chemicals, and this is where I'll admit I used a walkthrough for a lot of this, but this is one I figured out. Because I pick up a couple chemicals. I know I need to mix them together. I tried, and Spider-Man says, sorry, I've got no facilities here. But I remembered when I was mapping out the whole thing, there was a chemistry lab. So I went here, and I mixed the chemicals. And then I went back to Lizard. And then I remembered I mixed the chemicals, but I forgot them in the chemistry lab. You have to mix them, and then it makes chloride, and you have to pick it up. So then I had to walk all the way back, which, as you can see in this game, navigation, this is before waypoints. I had to go all the way back. See, I checked my inventory and it wasn't there. So I walked all the way back to the chemistry lab, grabbed the chloride, walked back to the Lizard, and then I threw the chloride at him, which, again, this is where it's just not realistic. Lizard is just sitting in a room. You walk up to him. You try to, but first off, the first thing I typed was kill Lizard. I can't do that. And then I did hit Lizard or punch Lizard. You can't do that. And at a certain point when I decided to go look for a walkthrough, it was somebody showed a screenshot that literally said, kill Lizard, punch Lizard. So I guess everybody tries that. It's the first thing they do. But he just stands there politely while you throw chloride at him. And once you do that, it happens. I love the dramatic way they say it. It happens. And if you look at the picture, you see that he has reverted to his Connors state. Doc Connors. And then what do? You look at him. Hey, he's got a gem. Grab the gem. And what else do you do? While you're at it, then you grab him. You pick up Connors. Take him. And then when you get gems, by the way, nobody explains this to you. You have to figure it out on your own. You walk back to Madam Web. You drop the gem. Now, this game, up to this point, it trains you to understand that when you drop something, you're taking it out of your inventory. So in my mind, if Madam Web wants this gem, give Madam Web the gem. I don't know what that means, the game will say. You have to literally just drop it. And then you can say to her, score, and she'll tell you how you're doing. Essentially, you can see how many, this is kind of from later in the game, but basically for every gem you give her, you get a certain number of points. If you do the math, you realize you need to get 18 gems to clear the game. So that was just a little example. There's a bunch of stuff like that. So you have to stop Lizard. You got to get past Sandman and grab some stuff. I'm going to show you another example. That was how we killed Lizard. You want to kill Hydro Man next?
Let's do it. Let's kill him.
All right, so we found Hydro Man. For some reason, standing next to an aquarium. I guess he likes water. So what do? I found a penthouse. And I found this myself. I didn't need a walkthrough. Except I couldn't figure out how to get in the elevator. And the walkthrough said, if you type open elevator. I was trying to push the elevator button, but you have to actually pry it open with Spider-Man strength. It's your turn, Daniel. So, I'm in a penthouse. Here are the visible items. There's the elevator shaft I crawled out of. There's a thermostat, a desk, a couch, a painting, and a clock. All right, you're Peter Parker.
Thermostat. I'm going to heat it up to kill Hydro Man because he's a cold guy, right?
He actually likes heat. He's not a cold guy. He's just a water guy.
Does he like cold?
What happens to water when you turn the temperature down?
He'll freeze. All right. So press thermostat.
This is another spot where I was like, turn thermostat, press thermostat, thermostat. Here's what I landed on.
Reduce temperature.
All right, we gotta just wait.
Wait, is this a video?
There you go.
A video?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lower thermostat. And you just have to type it over and over. You type lower thermostat, look thermostat. It tells you what it's at. Lower thermostat, look. Once it's down to 31, below freezing, you go back to Hydro Man. And now what's in the room? An ice statue and an ice block.
Oh, the water was there just to make you think about freezing it.
Well, it also comes into play in a second. So you take the ice statue, you take the ice block.
Oh, look, they showed the room empty after you did that. That's nice.
So, see, there is some advanced animation in this game. Return to the penthouse, and then you turn the thermostat back up a little bit. Not to let Hydro Man go, but at least enough to thaw the aquarium. And then, of course, in the aquarium, you find another gem. And you find a formula, which you use.
How do you get to a temperature where the aquarium thaws, but not Hydro Man?
Maybe it comes down to where is Hydro Man right now? Somehow,
yeah,
Spider-Man is carrying him. I guess they're using, remember Across the Spider-Verse, they explained cartoon space or something where you can fit an infinite number of things in your pocket, like giant cartoon hammers. I guess that's what's happening here. It's a simulation. Anything can happen. So maybe wherever he stuck the ice statue that is Hydro Man, it's shielded from temperature. Or even if he thaws out, he's just trapped in Spider-Man's cartoon pocket.
I came up with an explanation that will work within the world of the universe of the game. So that was an aquarium. It's pure water. Hydro Man is water plus a bunch of things like salt. Salt lowers the freezing point. Wait.
Though it begs the question of why did he...
Lowers the freezing point, yeah, which is the same as lowering the melting point. Yeah.
I'm sure somewhere in this game we can find all the chemical makeup of Hydro Man and really learn something.
Yeah, so he'll stay frozen even while the regular water thaws.
So, hey, we got the gem and we took care of Hydro Man. So you get the idea. Basically go through the game, collect gems, bring them back to Madam Web, and once you have 18, you clear the game. I've already told you a few things I don't love about this game, like the fact that they just found a cheat to make a bunch of puzzles for Spider-Man to solve. Like when you think Peter Parker Spider-Man, you don't think wandering around an empty office, picking up chemicals, mixing them, messing with thermostats. But by putting it in this computer simulation where it's all a test for the chief examiner, you can bypass a story. So I don't love that. But even game mechanics wise, there's some stuff I didn't love. Let me show you, Daniel.
By the way, I have to correct. My salt thing didn't make sense. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
You add salt to the roads to make the ice melt. So the salt's going to make him melt earlier than the water. So I don't know how to make it work.
The things that keep me up at night versus you, at least mine are cool. Like I can't sleep because I'm thinking of all the videos I want to make. Daniel can't sleep because he's like, well, what's the melting point of salt?
Way cooler.
Here's a little thing, all right? So there's a room that's got a pile of sand in it. And if you step on the floor or mess with the room at all, the sand coalesces into Sandman and you're screwed. So what you have to do is in the hallway, you climb on the roof and then crawl into the room. You're standing above him and there's a crib. Again, well, I guess for Sandman, he has a daughter. That's always part of his story. So at least there is some reason why he'd be standing next to a crib. But what you have to do is look at the crib. You look at it and you find a formula. Okay? Then you look at the crib again. You haven't done anything. You haven't manipulated the crib in any way. But you look at it a second time and you find a gem. There's no logic there. When you look at stuff in real life, I mean, there's nothing to tell you, well, Spider-Man kind of just glanced at it. If he takes a second closer look, he saw there was a gem next to that formula. Not baby formula, by the way. It's a formula for how to make web fluid. All right, so I didn't love that. The other thing was the first time I played through the game, I picked up, you remember in that room, there were 3 chemicals. There was the acid, there was the carbonate, and I had to mix them together to make the thing that I threw at Lizard. There was also exotic chemicals in that room, and I picked that up. So I was holding 3 chemicals, and I was like, okay, mix the carbonate and the hydrogen chloride. And he goes, I have too many chemicals. And I'm like, well, don't mix all of them together. Just mix those 2. But because I'd already picked up the exotic chemicals, I could not proceed in the game. I just couldn't get it through Spider-Man's thick skull. Take this one in one hand, this one in the other. Okay, I got the exotic chemicals. No, I did not say to grab the exotic chemicals. And then he can't.
Do you know what exotic matter is?
No.
In physics, especially in theoretical physics and cosmology, exotic matter refers to materials that have exotic properties such as negative mass. There's like all these weird things. I don't know if they are like actually exist or they're just theorized.
Negative mass isn't that weird. Helium balloon. All right.
I think helium has negative mass.
The other thing, I already alluded to this, but you're picking up everything in this game. You picked up Doc Connors. And then you pick up Dr. Octopus. You pick up Electro. I don't like when you solve a puzzle by doing something that you would never really think to try doing. Like, when I said this is a computer simulation, I intuited that. They never tell you that. And I got it from reading comics that came out later where they started to explain some of the lore. But in reality, like, you wouldn't pick up 7 different villains. And not just villains, but you go back to that penthouse. You pick up the desk. You pick up the couch. You pick up the clock. Anything that's not nailed down, you pick up. It's absurd.
Have you tried picking up the building?
No. Well, you're inside the building.
Yeah, what would happen if you tried?
I'm sure he would say, sometimes the game gets snarky. It's like, I must be an idiot because I don't know what you're talking about.
By the way, Gil, what the hell is a deoctor? I don't know what you were saying.
Yeah, I know. I kept having to cut out the typos. I was hoping people wouldn't notice. But the navigation took a while because I'd be like, I didn't realize right away, instead of typing go north, and I would type like go NTROH, I would just misspell it. You could just press S for south. Why are you picking up all this stuff? It actually serves a purpose. You have to pick up everything because in a certain room, you find a computer. You find a hypnotist. You have to close your eyes so he can't mind control you. You get past him and you find a computer. And you just decide of your own volition to type. You say type run. You try to run the computer. And it says, I need 950 pounds of paper to start processing. And if you keep traversing this labyrinth, you eventually find a scale. And you just drop everything on it. Throw Electro on there, Doc Ock. And this is where they got lazy with the graphics. I was hoping you would just see a dog pile of villains and a couch and an ice block. I guess you melted the ice block.
Wait, so the game is explicitly recognizing that you're carrying 900 pounds worth of things.
It does whatever a spider can. And you've seen a spider carry 7 villains on his back. You drop it all onto the scale. Why are you doing all this? It's so you can go back to the computer, type run again, and then it gives you a newspaper. That's what this was all for. You wanted to print a newspaper, which when you open it, you find a gem. So
what are these gems? Why does Spider-Man want the gems?
It's just
and
a
why
test.
Are there gems? Oh, yeah, in this computer simulation.
Like I said, that's the lazy storytelling. It's just, and if you're going to test Spider-Man's ability to fight, is this the best way to test it? You have definitely tested his ability to print a newspaper and unroll it. You've definitely tested his ability to turn a thermostat down and then up. Have you really seen him in combat? He couldn't even punch Lizard.
But this is the kind of stuff Spider-Man's good at, right?
He wouldn't even try. But you know who's not good at this stuff? Hulk. And his game is much the same. My favorite part of his game, by the way, there's one part where there's a swarm of ants and you have to get by them. And the way you do it is you find wax and you plug all your orifices. So as you go by, the ants can't get inside you. I mean, specifically, it's your eyes and your nose, I think, and your ears. They're trying to crawl in, but we know. So that's, it's also sometimes it's unclear what's happening. At one point, you can get on the side of the roof and you try to go up, won't let you. You try and go down, but so you're on the side of the skyscraper and then you say climb roof. And then it takes you, you type up, it goes, something stops me. Down, something stops me. And then you say climb roof. And it takes you to this other room where there's mist on the ground. All right, Daniel. Yeah, I typed climb ROM first. But where am I right now? Like if you're on the side, Daniel, if you're on the side of a skyscraper and someone yells at you, climb roof, how would you even interpret that? But apparently it means climb into a room with a mist on the ground.
Oh, yeah. That's what I would have guessed.
But I'll tell you the worst thing. Here's the worst part of the game. So if you go to the main hallway, there's one room where if you look at it, it says, I see a biogem. Now, I peeked ahead in the walkthrough, and one thing you need to do once you've formulated web fluid is you have to grab the biogem with webbing. So I tried it. I said, well, first I went into the room, which was a big mistake. So I went into the room, and you can actually see the biogem next to the matter energy egg. The natter energy egg. You see him right there, right? And then I left the room, and I was like, okay, I see the gem is definitely there. Let's grab it. Spray web. You type that in, and then it says, okay, in 2 words, at what? Obviously, at biogem. I don't know what a biogem is. Spray. Look west. I don't see anything. The biogem's gone. Here's what I learned. If you enter that room, you trigger something where the biogem disappears. And there is no possible way to bring it back. I go in the room, it's empty now. Which means I've only collected 17 gems. And if I go back to Madam Web, I ask for my score, I get a 94 out of 100. It's an A, but I want an A+. No way to get the biogem. The only way to do it is to start the game over. So that's what I did. I went back through all these steps. The ones you saw, but then a bunch of other steps too that I didn't bother to show you. One of the steps I didn't show you is you find this room with Doc Ock and Electro. And what you have to do is you grab Doc Ock and then you hit Electro. And somehow the electricity travels through you into Doc Ock and knocks out both of the villains. And then as you saw, you pick them both up. But on my second playthrough, it just wouldn't work. Get doctor. Okay, now hit electro. You have died. And you go to limbo, which just means you're in limbo and then you go down and you're back in the game. But I tried it over and over and it wouldn't work. And I'll prove it to you because I captured footage of the first time I did it. So here's previously. Ready? Get doctor. Hit electro. Boom. They're both knocked out. Okay. Now, get doctor. Hit electro. You're dead. So I gave up. Couldn't beat the game.
Was there something different? Were you not? Maybe you were carrying the water before, and that protected you.
Maybe rewatching it now, what I noticed is that previously Doc Ock was standing. This time he was laying down like he was already knocked out. So maybe I did something out of order. Like Doc Ock has to be standing and conscious when you grab him for some reason. I don't know. But I can tell you what happens if you actually get all 18 gems. You drop them. You say score to Madam Web. She gives you 100, and then it just says in text that the chief examiner gives you a code. I forget the code. It's something like Martha or something like that. Every one of these games, all three of them, if you get to the end and you beat it, the examiner gives you a code. Each code, I think, is one name. Scott Adams made all the codes the names of his children. What do those codes mean? We will never know. Everyone assumes that if you beat all 12 games, if they actually ever released all 12, you'd probably have to put all the codes in, and maybe it would unlock the final boss or something, but probably you'd have to beat all of them, get all the codes, and it would lead to something. But we'll never know. And I know that's an unsatisfying conclusion. You're dying to know. The Scatamites, did the Black Fleet kill them? Or did they survive? So I did peek ahead into Quasar in the 90s where they wrapped up the story. So the chief examiner did get 12 heroes' powers. And so Durgan used that to build a giant battle robot called the Chief Exterminator with the power of 12 heroes, including Wolverine, I think. But it wasn't enough. Durgan and the Exterminator are both killed in battle. The Scatamites are driven to the brink of extinction, but some of them at least are saved, thanks to Kayla Ballantine, who uses the power of the Star Brand to destroy the Black Fleet, except for Skeletron. If that's confusing,
Star Brand?
I don't know, but it's very powerful. And Kayla had it. I think Quasar gave it to her. And Skeletron is out there somewhere.
Why wouldn't they give us a happy ending?
Well, this is the 90s. This is the time of Venom. This is the time of anti-heroes. This is when things were getting real. So, look, the Black Fleet comes a-knocking. Some of you are going to get out, but not all of you. And you better believe you're not taking down Skeletron. So that's Questprobe featuring Spider-Man. Daniel, are you chomping at the bit to... Next episode, you want to see Hulk, Torch, and Thing? Or do you feel like you got the gist of these games?
I feel like it would have been nice if each of the games were different.
Yeah, they're all pretty
puzzles.
much the same.
I feel like I got a taste for it. ChatGPT doesn't know about the Black Fleet or the Scatamites. I was asking it to.
Yeah, I went
more
down.
About what happened?
The funny thing is, so I'm working on a video that involves this game to some extent. It involves the storyline behind this game. And I wanted to figure out how it all ended. I spent hours, and the hours of research I did is condensed into that paragraph I just said to you. Because that's the problem with comics. They get so convoluted, especially when you're going back when you're digging back through decades of material. It gets so hard to follow the chain of events. Like, what the hell is a Nestor egg? Okay, you got to check this comic where they explain that. And then it comes back in Quasar issue 38 from volume 1.
There's a Nestor egg in addition to a matter energy egg?
No, I misspoke. It's a natter energy egg.
Oh, I thought it was matter energy egg.
No, I said that, but it was I misspoke.
I didn't mean to call you out. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Daniel Faw. Somewhere in a desert is a pile of these games. Yeah, right next to the hole where they buried all the ET games. But I used to love, I said this earlier, but I used to love text adventure games. I had dreams of making my own, but sadly, I think the time has passed. A lot of my dreams have been stomped on from when I was a kid. I had dreams of working at a Blockbuster. I wanted to be the guy that people would ask me for recommendations. The closest I can come is photoshopping myself into the AI-generated background of a video rental store. All right, thank you everybody for joining us on this debut episode of Gamin' with Gil. More
And
games
Daniel.
are coming your way in the future. Well, we'll see. Maybe you can play a game one day, Daniel. I know games... You're not really ready for computer games yet, like Questprobe. You can start with Game Boy games, maybe. Like Mickey Mouse's Lost Keys or something. So you can, then maybe we'll bring it to the podcast or, we'll see. Okay, and that's where the podcast ends. And now we're going to end the live stream. I don't know if that's how podcasts usually work, where it's just embedded inside another live stream that has nothing to do with it. I have to say, I've never seen somebody try to do a video game explainer video on a live stream where you have to have all the clips ready to queue up. Like, okay, here's the everything that annoyed me clip. Here's the kill lizard clip. I feel like there's a reason people usually do it not live so they can just insert the clips later. But I know if we don't do it live, number one, we're not going to do it. And then number two, I'm going to way overthink the editing process and it's just going to take forever. I feel like maybe... I spent an hour cobbling together the Supergirl origins for a story that wasn't really about, like, that maybe would have made sense if it's a Supergirl movie announced, but she's been cast. Do we really need and by the way, here's her origin story, here's a slideshow of all the pictures from the graphic novel. Do you think am I hitting the mark for level of effort or am I doing too much?
I mean, I thought that was more interesting than the casting.
Okay. I remember one time Adam told me I was spending too much time writing, and he was like, you are aiming for an A+. You need to start aiming for a B+. You're on YouTube, okay? This is not the Nobel laureate. And the funny thing is, the next video I wrote, when he told me, shoot for a B+, next video I wrote was what Castlevania is really about. One of the first comments I got, people don't normally just comment a letter grade. I've never seen it before. One of the first comments I got, B+. It's only happened one more time since then. Someone gave me an A- on Blade Runner, I think.
B+ is such a weird comment to leave.
It's
You're like,
very
yeah,
weird.
it was good. It was good.
It wasn't Adam. I know it wasn't him. It was legitimate. It was probably Daniel Faw. Let's be honest. Daniel says, lower the curve of the grade. It's too many words. Questprobe cannot understand that. You need 17 gems to do that. What's your final word, Daniel?
I'm going to go look for gems, biogems, and Natter energy eggs.
Don't look at them. You'll blow them up.
Yeah.
You got to just shoot
I'll
them
just
with your...
take them.
You have to find the formula in Sandman's crib. Then find some exotic chemicals in an office. Go to the chemical lab, make web fluid, and then grab the biogem. And then go to see Madam Web and drop it. And then say, you look at her right in the eyes, and you say, score. Okay? Let's end it there. Thank you, everybody, for joining. If you enjoyed this stream, please make sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for more. It's very exclusive to watch this live, so you want to get notified because once we finish streaming, it goes in the vault until about 12 hours later when I post it on the other channel, the OneTake podcast /clips channel. There's a link in the description if you want that. It's beautiful. We chop it all up. So tomorrow you're going to see new thumbnails, one for Matt Damon, one for Supergirl. And I'm having a lot of fun making these thumbnails. You're going to see a new Gamin' with Gil thumbnail. And then after I've chopped it up and released it in pieces, and you're like, I want to see all the crevices in between. What did they cut out? I post the whole live stream. and it's archived there. And Daniel's like, oh God, I got to call Gil. You got to cut out all that stuff I said before.
Are you going to make a whole separate clip about jet lag? Thanks for watching.
Then I wanted that to be the last thing you say. Say it again.
Are you going to code out a separate clip just of the jet lag stuff?